Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. How are you, man?
I'm good. Another cold week in the UK, but gaming news has been all over the place, and we have all sorts of topics to cover. It's been a wild week, especially when it comes to the whole, Sony thing with the Activision Blizzard thing, which it is getting a bit long in the tooth, but it's getting
Oh, circus.
yeah, it's getting really spicy now, which is really good. But before we get into the topics, have you been playing anything interesting?
Yeah, I've been playing Power Wash Simulator again, just, my Zen game. I picked up Inscription, which finally made its way to Xbox. If you aren't aware, it's a well known indie game, card based horror. It's really interesting and creative. I highly recommend it. Also picked up Scars Above on sale, and I'm planning to dive in on that. Have heard great things. And then planning to jump in immediately into Ghostwire tomorrow once it goes live. How about you, man?
Well, this shouldn't surprise people. Mass Effect Legendary Edition.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I try to do like a playthrough of the Mass Effect games like once a year, and I hadn't actually went through them since I finished Legendary Edition for the first time in August 2021. And I thought I'd started a new playthrough October gone, and I'll just take my time with it this time. Because normally I'm playing for hours at a time, but literally for the past 5 months I've been doing like a mission a week or a day. So it's like taking me a while, but now with on Mass Effect 3, man, that game has some of the best third-person combat of any game. The shooting, the powers, everything just perfect. Yes, it's Gears of War 2 combat, but with powers, but that isn't a bad thing. But other than that, I finished Atomic Heart. Can't remember if I said last week. Great game. What can I say? The achievement tracking now works. So if people are just getting into it, your achievements will pop. There's a field of view changer now, which you can mess around with. It's a great game. We're going to see more of that universe. There's going to be an expansion or two. They've already confirmed a sequel, which I'm happy for because it's a great game. And if people are wanting a Bioshock style game, that's the best thing you're going to find. At least it's up there with Prey in my opinion. It's a damn good game. And a little bit of Hard Space Shipbreaker because that game is just ridiculously relaxing. People talk about next gen games all the time and like what that means. And to me, that is the epitome of a next gen game. It simulates gravity with like hundreds, if not thousands, of different individual objects, and it's really relaxing. You get given a plasma cutter, a gravity tool, and some demolition stuff, and you go to town, dismantle spaceships. It's such a simple thing, which they could have messed up because a lot of games they'll throw lots of menus at you all the time. This game, it's not. It's not complicated. They just let you at it, and it's great. It's in Game Pass. It's arguably one of the best next gen games because it simulates gravity unlike anything we've ever seen in a game. Like Dead Space, for instance, the remake, that has 3D, zero-G movement. You have all these objects floating around. Well, in Hard Space Shipbreaker, it's tracking everything you cut apart and move in three-dimensional space. I'm nerding out a bit because it's an amazing game and I think people need to play it, but I've put like 170 hours into it since it came out. It's a proper relaxing game. I think more people need to play it. And honestly, I think when it comes to games, like that game didn't get enough attention at launch. It launched in Game Pass. I was going nuts for it. I've probably posted about it on Twitter 100 times. It's incredible. Like, Logan, have you played it yet?
Yeah, I've played a little bit of it. I haven't gotten too far, but I found it super interesting what I did try.
Yeah, like I guarantee you, if that game was third person, there'd be a lot more talk about it. It's just that people see it as a niche first person, PC centric game. Like I've got gameplay on the screen right now. It should be a complicated game, but it's not. It's amazing, and I'll probably be playing that for years to come. I hope we get like expansions for it, but yeah, outside of that, that's pretty much it. And yeah, let's get into the topics because we have a lot to talk about. So first up, Hi-Fi Rush, amazing game. Just got a new update. You can now dress the characters as bosses as you defeat them, which is really cool. It's basically a cosplay update, But the thing that interested me the most is that it has accessibility options. Now, for Elden Ring and Dark Souls, I am good at parrying. Some would say an expert. Hi-Fi Rush, terrible. Can't parry enemies to save my life. Thankfully, they've changed things. You can now mess about with the settings and make the parrying as easy or as difficult as you want. Logan, you struggled as well, right?
Yeah, pairing was not my strong suit at the beginning of this game. I actually took a break from it for a while before I finally figured it out, got good at it, beat the game, and have gone through end game and wrapping that up. But I'm glad that they've added the pairing options because this game is all about being for more people to be able to play it. Like, not everybody has great rhythm coordination or, music awareness and stuff like that. So, they had already made these changes for that. So, it makes perfect sense that they've added pairing updates to make it where it can auto parry or make it a lot more lenient on the timing for pairing to where everybody can enjoy the game and not get stressed out when you get to one boss fight or a sub boss fight or one encounter and you're like, I just can't do this, and you quit a game when you've put a bunch of hours in it and you've loved it. So I'm glad they've done that. And the cosplaying as the bosses is really fun. Like, for example, 808 can dress like a werewolf, which is really funny. Or Cinnamon can dress like Corsica, or Corsica can dress like um, Zonzo, and she looks downright scary as Zonzo. It's really funny. And let's see, I can't remember his name. The tech guy. He can cosplay as the 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 girl that had the butterfly wings in the boss fight, the singer girl, and then Peppermint can cosplay as that lady that was in charge of engineering. And so it's just fun to mix and match and just have goofy fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I struggle with the characters' names as well because all the characters in that game are pretty much named after hipster drinks. Like, if you really think about it, you've got chai, peppermint, you've got kale there as well. So they knew what they were doing when it comes to names because it's making fun of them basically. But yeah, it's a good update, and it's good to see that this game is continuing to get support because when it comes to these games, people should be able to play them. And look, like I've said, I was good at parrying in Elden Ring, a game that's considered to be extremely difficult. This game, a fun, colourful game, I couldn't parry it to save my life, so I can get back onto it now. Good times. And as you were saying before the show, Ghostwire Tokyo goes live on Xbox in about an hour and 50 minutes, so good times. But if you want, like on Xbox, you can upgrade to the Digital Deluxe Edition for I think it's like $27. Whereas if you were to purchase the game as a Digital Deluxe version, you would have to pay about 100. So you're getting the game and Game Pass, and for like $27, you're getting all of the bonus content, which we're going to see the same for Redfall and other games. I think that's a really good thing about Game Pass and them putting content into the service that way. Like, you wanted to bring this up, but it is a good deal, right?
Yeah, I think it's a great deal because I bought the deluxe upgrade, and since I got it before it launches, I got the pre-order bonus as well. And so, like, for $17.99 US, I was able to get all the deluxe stuff, the pre-order stuff, and then I already had the game installed through Game Pass. So, boom, I have the deluxe edition ready to go. And then when I want to buy it later, I can buy it on sale at a lower price, and then I'll have the whole thing just owned. And they're going to do the same for Redfall, but Redfall will also have the Steelbook if you want to buy it separate from Amazon or whatever. So I kind of like the options they've been doing. It's a good look.
Yeah, I mean, when people buy these, I should say subscribe to Game Pass, you're getting all the content and stuff. And like, there's always been this debate, like, does Microsoft make money on the games? People like try and concern troll and that, but like, the truth is, if these services didn't work, they wouldn't exist, right? We go onto Twitter every day and we see people concern trolling this, but like, Microsoft kind of came up with a way of you being able to support a game while still playing it in Game Pass. Because the model for years is you buy the game, you have it, you finish it, you either sell it if you've got it physically or you move on to something else. And, Microsoft's always been, there's this perception that Microsoft is a live service focused company. When you look at all their games, most of them are single player. So, how do you monetize single player games without putting really ridiculous microtransactions in them? You do what they've been doing recently, Hi-Fi Rush. You get the game in Game Pass, you get the deluxe edition upgrade for X amount of dollars. I think for that game it was like $15 or something. Deathloop, Ghostwire Tokyo, Redfall. I'm guessing Starfield will have something similar. So it's like, even if you get to play the game in Game Pass, they put in enticing things in these little packages that'll make you think, you know what? I am playing this game, quote unquote, free in Game Pass, but I will pay $27 or £20 for this, deluxe edition upgrade. And the content you get is actually pretty good. So I think it's well worth it. It's a good way for them to monetize, expansions, or I should say external content for Game Pass games. And, let's face it, if you're like me, Logan, a lot of people listen to this, Microsoft Rewards, you can get a lot of money that way. You can pretty much buy these content packs just by, doing Microsoft rewards. Like, at the minute, I have, I think, 180 something thousand Microsoft Reward points. Now, that's while also paying for my Game Pass. So, you can save up a lot of money. Technically, you can buy hardware with Microsoft Reward points as well. So, the sky's the limit. So, I think it's a good way for them to monetize, extra packs without putting in DLC. Because let's face it, ever since, the horse armor in Elder Scrolls Oblivion, people have been kind of side-eyeing smaller DLC content or microtransactions. This is just a new way of them monetizing stuff. So it's smart, and if the content there is worth it, people are willing to pay for it. But yeah, we'll move on. Star Wars Jedi Survivor comes out in about 2 to 3 weeks, and the game looks incredible. Every single trailer they put out looks amazing. I put it like this, they announced a AAA Star Wars game in December, and it releases in April. And in that time, we've had a reveal trailer and 3 gameplay-centric trailers. And the game looks amazing. I found out recently that even though Coruscant is in the game, it wasn't actually officially confirmed, but Coruscant is one of the levels. Now, I nerded out and lost it when I found out about this, because I thought it was just going to be maybe a level where there's an action set piece. Maybe not an entire open world section like the first game. But yeah, Coruscant is one of the planets in this game where you can free roam, do different things, the side quests in this game. So, it's looking promising. Going into 2023, I thought, my favorite game of the year is either going to be Hogwarts Legacy, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, or Starfield. And the more I see of this trailer, or this game, it looks incredible. The gameplay is improved. They've put features in the game people wanted in the original. It looks like the perfect sequel to what was already an incredible game. I'm on playing the first game at the minute, and it's an incredible game, but having to backtrack all the time is a bit of a pain. The fact that, learning the double jump halfway through the game, if you've already played through the game once, you keep trying to double jump. It's like muscle memory. Well, you get the double jump halfway through the game. But that won't be the case with this game. You've got all that stuff in advance. But yeah, the game looks incredible. Comes out in 3 weeks. Logan, I know you're looking forward to it too, right?
Oh yes, I'm a hardcore Star Wars guy. This is day one, deluxe edition. Just gimme, gimme, gimme. Can't wait for it. I love the characters, the world, the gameplay, story, the lore, the Easter eggs, tie-ins to other Star Wars eras and things. And I'm super fascinated to see where they take this, because without getting too spoilery, it's obviously in a certain era, so there are directions they can or can't go. So I'm curious how they're going to address certain things as they get closer and closer to a New Hope era, and how do they, are they able to persist in a region of space or in this area and either interact with or not interact with other events. And it's getting closer and closer to that timeline. So I'm super fascinated how they handle that as well.
Yeah, these 13K one productions and chat said I want these games I want that these games get put in official law. Well, these games are official law. All these
Yep, they're canon.
yeah, canon. All these new games are canon. Star Wars Squadrons, canon. Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order. The next few Star Wars games obviously going to be canon. The only things that aren't canon are the ports. Like Knights of the Old Republic port, although we don't really know if that is proper canon. It's a weird story. The Force Unleashed remaster that came to, Switch, although that's the PSP version. But those aren't canon, so just the new games. But yeah, it looks amazing. And when it comes to the whole story thing, like this game's set, I think it's halfway in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So there's things they can still do with the story. Obviously, they can't go crazy and invent new stuff. But everything I've seen in the game so far, like I just saw a clip where there's battle droids, just like talking to each other. Like that's what I want.
Droidicas.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to like modern Star Wars fans, like, this goes to me. I love seeing prequel stuff in Star Wars games now. Like, I love the prequel movies. I don't care what people say. I think A New Hope is a bit, not A New Hope. Sorry, Phantom Menace. It has some cool scenes, but outside that, I love Attack of the Clones and I love Revenge of the Sith. Don't care what anyone says. I love that era. The Clone Wars, the series, highly recommend people watch it. Great. Rebels, great. But yeah, it looks like a great game, and that comes out in 3 weeks. The reason I want to talk about it, other than the fact it looks great, is that a few months ago, Jason Schreier, I'm always going to mess up his last name, put out an article about how, like, if there's no AAA games getting announced now, they aren't going to come out this generation. And that made me scratch my head, because we have games now that are getting announced and releasing within a year. Jedi Survivor, I'm going to mess it up every time I say its name, by the way. Jedi Survivor, announced in December, releasing April, Atlas Fallen, announced in the September, releasing the following August. We're having these smaller announcement to release periods. And I don't think that, like, Logan, do you really believe that, what he wrote? Like, if we don't see AAA games announced now, they aren't releasing this generation?
I don't completely buy that. I think there are some titles that are definitely so large in scale that we will probably see them next generation, but I still think there are some that are hidden in the weeds that people haven't heard about yet that will be coming for this console generation. The idea that every game that's not announced has to be something coming in 28 or 29 or later seems a little outside of touch to me, but I mean, he's obviously got great sources and he generally knows what he's talking about. But in regards to that, I definitely like Hi-Fi Rush, for example. There was a shadow drop of a game that was clearly well in development and just announced and bam, in Game Pass. That proves that not all games that are not announced yet don't have to be for next gen. They can come out for this gen. So yeah, I don't really buy that.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that because it was a weird statement that's just stuck with me. And like, we're going to see games announced this year that release this year. We have the summer showcase, which we'll be talking about in a bit, but there's going to be games announced there that will release later this year. Like, hell, we still don't know what games released late this year. Like, outside of Starfield and Spider-Man, like, there isn't really any games coming out that we know of. You're going to get the annual Call of Duty and your FIFA and all that stuff. Or should I say EA Football Sports or whatever it's called now. Like, we don't know what this holiday's big releases are. Like, at all. Which is crazy if you think about it. Because normally the holiday is stacked. But this year, we know nothing. And maybe that's a good sign. Maybe we're going to have a lot of surprises, which I hope, Assassin's Creed Mirage is rumoured to have been pushed from August to later in the year, which is kind of heartbreaking. because I was looking forward to that game. But hey, if it needs to be delayed, I'm fighting. Plus, if a game gets delayed internally, is it really delayed? Anyway, we'll move on. But yeah, just wanted to talk about that. A few hours ago, the Xbox New Zealand Twitter account posted a picture of basically teasing Banjo-Kazooie. Now, everything Xbox posts, it gets a tooth and comb, magnifying glass.
Disturbance in the force,
Yeah,
definitely.
like people like research it, like Phil Spencer's shelf, which we'll be talking about in a bit. Like people look for these things, and I think people at Microsoft know by now. Maybe don't make such obvious posts because people are going to maybe read too much into it, or maybe it does mean something. And the fact that the Xbox Twitter account for New Zealand and Australia basically just posted Banjo-Kazooie, people are wondering, is there going to be a new one? Now, Logan, I know that you want a new Banjo-Kazooie. I know a lot of people want a new Banjo-Kazooie game. Personally, I don't really care. I just want new games. I don't really care what it is. And for me, when it comes to platforming, I was a Mario and Donkey Kong person. I like Banjo-Kazooie, but like I'd play a new one. I like Crash Bandicoot and all that stuff. But Logan, what's your thought on this? Because I know you're a really big fan of the franchise.
I mean, it's one of my dream Xbox announcements for this generation. It feels like a criminally misused franchise. I know that this isn't the 90s anymore. I know that platforming isn't the major cultural zeitgeist gaming, genre of choice, but especially when Phil and others have gone out of their way to say we need more family friendly content, or we need more that appeals to a more casual audience, or that are more easygoing and this and this. I'm like, hello, you've got Banjo Kazooie tied up in your basement, like you've got it in your IP warehouse. You've got Banjo Kazooie. Once the ABK deal hopefully goes through, you'll have Spyro, you'll have Crash Bandicoot, you'll have Skylanders, Tony Hawk, Guitar Hero, whole bunch of family stuff. And the fact that there's been rumors and mumblings about Banjo for years now, when it was launched for Smash Brothers, it set the internet on fire. Everybody was thrilled. So, I mean, like, read the room, guys. Like, people would like a Banjo. Maybe not the hardcore, like, the dude bro shooter box, Xbox is like only this and only that types, but people who just game from a wide variety of genres, like Banjo has appeal, and if nothing else from a nostalgia play, it would be smart at this point. Like, give him another chance. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a Banjo-Kazooie game, but I do think that people are just wanting new games, maybe new IP and all that stuff. But Microsoft have so many studios, and most studios consist of multiple teams. Like, you've got to think they have a studio that could do Banjo-Kazooie some justice. I've always thought Double Fine would do that series justice, especially after playing the fantastic, Psychonauts 2, which is an incredible game. Maybe there is a place for, that franchise to come back. And especially with the whole Activision thing coming through, like, maybe Toys for Bob could work on it. Like, the sky's the limit. But I just think them posting that was either really obvious or maybe they're just having a bit of fun. But people read into these things. And, speaking of reading into things, Phil Spencer's shelf. Now, I can't believe that Phil Spencer's shelf is a topic on podcasts, but here we are. I mean, we should have learned a long time ago. Phil Spencer's shelf, he put stuff on that thing, and we notice it. Although the Xbox Series S was on his shelf for months and nobody batted an eye. I just assumed it was a Bluetooth speaker. So anyway, he posted an interview today, and basically there's an image in the background of the shelf of this tiny little Xbox-shaped box. That's the best way to describe it. You can make out the Xbox power button and maybe a USB port. And it looks like it's about the quarter of the size of the Series S. Now, as Jez Corden posted on Twitter, this could be the keystone. The Microsoft Stream Box, basically, the Roku for Xbox, and you know, Jez Corden has said in the past, like, it did get shelves as a product. Microsoft shelves products all the time. This isn't a new thing. Back in the Xbox 360 generation, and I've talked about this before, but I still wish it came out because I would have loved to have had one. But there was an Xbox 360 Mini in development that would only play Xbox arcade titles. It would be a lower powerful console with less storage, and it would just be for indie games. Obviously, it never saw the light of day, but that was meant to be a thing. There was going to be an Xbox smartwatch, which never saw the light of day, and then 2 years later, Apple announced the Apple Watch, and it blew the world away. Just stuff like that, and like all sorts of these products get cancelled. I remember covering in 2015 that Microsoft was working on a streaming stick, and it never came out. And maybe he's putting that in the background there because it's a remnant of a cancelled product that's maybe never going to see the light of day, or maybe it is going to come out later this year. Because the rumor was that Microsoft was wanting to release the Stream Box as a stocking filler, a holiday gift type thing. Because I think with Microsoft launching, xCloud in more markets, them purchasing Activision, they're going to have more streamable games. Them having a streaming console that's about $100 with a controller, it just makes sense. You can stream games from your console, your PC, your mobile device. A streaming box isn't that unrealistic, is it now, Logan?
No, I think a streaming box makes perfect sense in today's environment, especially with making all these cloud deals with regulators and companies across the globe. Some people have a tighter budget, and they could get a streaming box versus even a Series S or Series X, and or you can get it as a complementary device for your consoles. They're all about gaming anywhere, any way you want, for any budget. So to me, it makes sense to make it. But the thing for them is it cost effective to make it? Like, it might be where they could get it out the door just fine and it works great, but the price they would have to sell it as would not be economically viable. So that's kind of my personal hunch as to why it was not released, is that it was probably too expensive to make for what they could sell it for, or what they were hoping to sell it for. And so to me, I see it on a shelf. I think of it more as like a memento and a trophy, kind of to go with some of the other stuff on there. Like, the custom Alan Wake, 360, or like the Elden Ring sword, and some of the other stuff that's not teases of future projects. They're just mementos from a bygone era, or like, this is a rare artifact that there's only like 10 of in the world and I have one of them, kind of thing to me, personally.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be what you just said, but like Microsoft, they wanting to like get it out in the new markets. The streaming services being put out. I think it's going to be available in 40 countries, which is a lot. And streaming tech is becoming more viable. I stream on xCloud probably every week. I used to do it every day when it was a Microsoft Rewards thing, but like I used it pretty much all the time. And I'll tell you what, like, as someone that played Forza while streaming, even though the resolution would dip, you'd get all pixelated sometimes, I would never have any lag at all. And it's impressive tech. It really is. And I think when it comes to that kind of thing, like, lag is important. But also, if you're going to play a game streaming on a big TV, you're going to want to have a high resolution. And, in the age of 4K, everyone has a 4K TV. If you have a 720p stream that dips in quality when there's too much going on, people are really going to notice it. So, like you said, they're probably, waiting to, streamline the thing. And the tech is getting better all the time. All the time. Like, I remember using xCloud when it first became available in the UK, and it was okay. And now, I'd say it's great. It's a great service. xCloud is viable in a lot of countries. There's a lot of countries with super fast internet. And I was using 5G last week to stream Forza. It was incredible. It was perfect. No problems at all. Resolution stayed fine. solid frame rate, all that stuff, no lag. So the tech's getting there. But to have a streaming box that's capable of that stuff, maybe it has some online storage. It has to be capable of doing everything your Xbox can do, but in the cloud. The tech's getting there. I think it might release this year. And one of the reasons why I do think it releases this year is because, the tech is getting there. And Sony's releasing a streaming handheld this year. Now, there isn't any news on Sony, Microsoft doing a streaming handheld at all. Their way into streaming is mobile. Hell, if you have a PlayStation 5 and you have a mobile device, you can stream your PlayStation games to your mobile. So, it's not that unrealistic. And I think when it comes to, all these different, avenues of streaming, it's just a viable solution, I'd be interested in anyone in chat, does a streaming box or streaming handheld interest you? Because, Logan, you have that LG streaming thing, right?
Yeah, I have the Logitech cloud device, and it lets me, use either Game Pass on the go, or I can, if I'm at home, I can stream from my Xbox directly and play things that aren't in Game Pass. And it'll also let me access games on Steam, so kind of like a cloud version of a Steam Deck in a way. And then I can play Mighty Doom and Android type apps on it. So I love mine personally.
Right, because on that device you can, as you said, you can stream all that stuff. You can even stream your PC games if you want. So it might be a pricey device, but it can do a lot. Now, what Sony's want to do is have a device that only streams PlayStation games, because as of right now, you can only stream PlayStation 5 games from your console locally, unless you do some weird workaround. Microsoft's streaming option, they have a bunch of series consoles in the cloud. They used to have Xbox One X's in the cloud. I don't know what the current situation is, but you can stream next gen games on Xbox Cloud. So there must be the thing is, whenever these handhelds got rumored recently, people were wondering who's this for? Only Xbox games or only PlayStation games streaming, no PC option, all that stuff. The Logitech thing makes sense because there's different avenues, but maybe Microsoft and Sony have these numbers that we just don't have access to, because the CMA in the UK, they were concerned about cloud. Is the market for cloud that big that they are wanting to release hardware? Microsoft with the box and Sony with the handheld. It is weird, isn't it, Logan? Because there's been this big emphasis on yes, Call of Duty, but cloud.
Yeah, especially since Sony tried cloud stuff in the past and they royally failed at it and dropped it. We talk about Microsoft being ahead in all these areas, and they have been, but Sony did have cloud a while back, but they just didn't do very good with it, and they dropped it. And it seems like they're finally getting that, we should have cloud, it's important now. So now they're trying to get into it late in the game, and only a streaming, I'm not sure how much that's going to take off, especially if it requires you to have, a PS5 or PS4 or whatever on top of it. It's not I can just get this instead. So I think it'll have limited appeal personally, but the hardcore Sony folks will probably still pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, there must be a market for them to actually think about putting it out, but it's going to be interesting. I do think we will see home consoles for the next 20 plus years. Streaming just is good at the minute, but it's just not viable for everyone yet. Hell, there's a spot on my street. If you walk on a certain spot on my street, you lose all internet access, and it's in the middle of the street. So it is weird at the minute, but it is getting better. But I know people do worry that is this going to be the only option in the future? I think that is going to be decades away from streaming as the only option. It's just one avenue, but it'll be interesting to see what these devices will actually sell like. Anyway, we'll move on. Before I move into the next topic, YouTube is crap at sharing things, so if everyone's enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. Got another video coming out soon. Super chats are all live if you want anything read out and all that stuff. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, let's talk about Square Enix because we need to talk about Square. You know, Octopath Traveler released in Game Pass a few years ago. It was basically a shadow drop one day, and people were surprised. You know, the Switch exclusive got announced for Xbox Game Pass, and people were surprised because it's a Square Enix game, you know, and it was a Nintendo exclusive. And, you know, a few years go by, and then bam, the sequel gets announced, and it gets announced for Switch and PlayStation, no Xbox. And people start wondering, why is it not coming to Xbox? Did it sell badly on Xbox? So they didn't put the sequel on? And this is where I think that doesn't make sense. The first game wasn't even on PlayStation. So they had zero sales from PlayStation, made zero money from PlayStation for the first game, yet they ported the sequel. Microsoft put down the paycheck for Octopath Traveler. Seemingly not the case for the second game, but the game didn't get announced for Xbox. It looks like it's never coming. Then they announced the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters. The names are all over the place, by the way. That's why I'm struggling. The Pixel remasters are coming to everything except Xbox. And people had a problem with this. The pricing for those games, by the way, is ridiculous, but it's not coming to Xbox. And people are saying that JRPGs don't sell on Xbox, and that's why we don't get them. Yet we do get things like Crisis Core. Yet we do get things like Strangers of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. We get that. We get Star Ocean 6. We get the Diofield Chronicles, or whatever the hell you call it. I'm going to butcher that game's name every single time I talk about it. And every single time those games come over, people will, you know, they'll cite the UK sales numbers, which I've talked about before. UK sales numbers physically mean nothing these days. Like, hell, my city has no video game store and hasn't had a video game store for 10 years. 10 years. And, you know, every single time these Japanese RPGs skip Xbox, I see different trains of thought. Xbox people aren't playing the games enough or buying them to justify them putting more games on the console. Then we have other Japanese publishers announcing games to come to Xbox. You know, Konami, the Sudoku games are getting remastered this year. They're coming to Xbox. They're coming to everything else as well. So it's like, why is it okay? Why is it okay for these games to come by other publishers and people are like, okay, they'll come over? But the second Square Enix gets mentioned in any scenario, people freak out. They gatekeep, right? Final Fantasy VII Remake should be on Xbox. I think we can all agree. But it's not. And it had originally a year of exclusivity, then 2 years, and here we are in 2023. Zip. Absolute zip. And people are wondering what's the situation. People are wondering, do we blame Xbox? Do we blame Square? Do we blame Sony for paying to keep these games off the console? And it's like, it's all over the place. I think the problem is all of the above. Microsoft needs to do more, obviously, to fix some problem they have with Square. And frankly, let's face it, Sony locks in these deals years in advance, right? Final Fantasy 16, that may never come to Xbox. We don't know. Yet, if we look at in the past, right, Microsoft will pay upfront to get games in Game Pass. And that's worked for some games. Like Yakuza. Yakuza 0 all the way through to 6 came to Game Pass. And then, what do you know? Yakuza 7 or Yakuza Like a Dragon came to Xbox. And every single Yakuza game that's came out since, and including Judgment, has not launched in Game Pass. Yet they've came over. So they're clearly getting the sales to justify the ports. But Square Enix are not porting these games over, like Final Fantasy VII Remake and all that stuff. And people are just wondering, like, who's at fault? Logan, what do you think's the deal? Because it's a weird situation.
I think, like you said, it's a mix of all three. I think Xbox needs to do a better job about it. I think Square obviously has the games and they control at the end where they go, so that they have the majority of the onus on them to make it happen or not. And then Sony obviously has been making deals with Square and other publishers to keep games off Xbox. It's just the way it's been going. Potentially the investigations by the U.S. And Japan trade agreement and all that maybe changes the playing field in regards to that down the road. But for right now, it's the way it is. And like this is purely, just educated guesswork. This isn't based on knowledge, but it would almost appear like it kind of just, want the bag or like every port or, like, hey, pay up for this, pay up for that, and we'll drop it over. Or, Sony has already paid to keep it off. Or maybe they just don't have a good relationship with them. I don't know. At this point, though, it would, on the surface, appear to be something more than a miscommunication. It seems to be something stronger than that. It, for whatever reason, they do not vibe with each other right now. It just, that's the way it appears. And so, how do they fix that? Well, they could, money makes a lot of people happy. They could just drop obscene amounts of money at their door. Maybe that would help. But then it sets an expectation that, okay, if Square wants to act all hissy fit or sad or, start holding out again, that we're going to have to up the ante and drop even more money to them. So that could send a precedent that they don't want. And then other publishers could be like, oh, see, Square gets paid to do this. We should ask Xbox to do that. And so then that sets a slippery slope to where maybe Xbox is just like, no, we're not giving you money. You know what? We will take a hit and just not get these games rather than pay you out for it. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's simply that there's been some behind the scenes stuff and they just don't like each other. That could very well be it. And maybe it's just a petty thing. Or, maybe it's simply Sony has made it to where it's just not going to happen. But I would just say, bottom line, for the foreseeable future until something else happens, I would just not expect any of the major Square titles going forward on Xbox for the foreseeable future unless something dramatically changes. It just, like Kingdom Hearts 4, I wouldn't expect that. The next major Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, whatever, until it's announced for Xbox, I would just say it's probably just not happening at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like Kingdom Hearts 4, that's going to be the big one that basically tells us what's the deal. But I just don't understand because like Crisis Core, I've been telling people since that game came out on Xbox last year that like it's an incredible game. People need to play it, even though it clearly leads to the remake. It's an incredible game, but like I've never seen advertising for that game. And I think the big problem is that Square Enix, they've always had a weird situation with Xbox. Like, the first numbered Final Fantasy game to be on Xbox was 13. And 13 was extremely divisive. Like, some people loved it, some people hated it. It was the Marmite of Final Fantasy games. And then, Final Fantasy 11 was on the console, but that was an MMO at a weird time. And then the next Final Fantasy game we got on Xbox was, the 13-2, then Lightning Returns, but again, divisive games. But the next proper Final Fantasy game we got on Xbox was 15, many years later. And, I thought 15 was a good game. Its marketing was all over the place, but, like, it was blatantly marketed as a PlayStation game. And again, 15 was divisive. Doesn't matter how many copies that sold, people either loved it or hated it. But like Microsoft has never had a mainline Final Fantasy launch that has been considered, genuinely great. Right? Final Fantasy 8, 7, 9, 10, 12 even, like are considered great games. But none of them launched on Xbox. And I think maybe Square's sales expectations for the ports that come over are just stupidly high. Because I've seen a few PlayStation fans kind of say this recently, that when the original Final Fantasy VII came to Xbox in 2018, I believe it was 2018, the port of the original game from the 90s, I saw a few people say that game should have been number one on the Xbox store for at least 18 months because of how big of a game it was. It's like, I bought it day one, but I didn't expect everyone to go out and buy this game, which is, let's face it, PlayStation 1 era games, they've aged like milk, right? The graphics in those games are terrible. No matter how much AI upscaling you do, they look bad. Because that was, there was the first 3D generation, first 3D proper generation. And those games have aged horribly. So, like, I didn't expect people to go out and buy that game at all. The remaster of 8 looks fantastic. Some of those games actually charted in the top 5 in the UK on the Xbox store. But, like, Square Enix, they do all these stupid decisions, and then they saying that they're going to continue to make the choices they do make, yet they're complaining that the Final Fantasy fan base is small and getting smaller every generation. I wonder why. And the situation's all over the place. And every time I talk about Final Fantasy, by the way, I get people saying, oh, but I don't care about JRPGs. You should want more games on the platform. I don't care about fighting games. I stopped playing fighting games when I was 19. For some reason, I turned 19, I couldn't drink tequila anymore, and I couldn't play fighting games. Don't know what happened. But I still want the fighting games on Xbox, because there's people that want it. Like, Street Fighter 6 is going to be huge, and that's on Xbox this year. And it's going to be a big deal. I want Killer Instinct to come back, because there's fans that want it to come back. I don't play fighting games, but I still want the games on the platform, because there's fans that want it. And there's JRPG fans that want these games on Xbox. We shouldn't be expected to buy a £500 console. Oh yeah, it's over £500 now, sorry. I shouldn't have to buy a weaker platform that costs more to buy JRPGs. It's stupid. That no one should go out there and do that. And the fact that I'm expected to do that, no, not happening. In fact, when I do get a PlayStation 5, I'm still not going to buy those games just to spite Square, because they're dumb. And the fact that they're going to continue with the NFT thing when in a year when nobody cares about NFTs anymore, the NFT market pretty much crashed when crypto did. Nobody cares. Square Enix are the arseholes of the industry. They are the new Ubisoft, in my opinion. And they've made some amazing games in the past. Amazing. Now, they are a shadow of themselves. You used to get a game case with the Square logo on it, Squaresoft, and you knew you were getting a good game. And now, they make crap, basically. People will praise Final Fantasy VII because, granted, I've been told it's a great game. I can't tell because I haven't played it, but, like, Square gets this pass by a lot of people, I've noticed, and I've noticed there's some really big content creators that will give Square Enix a pass because, maybe they get sponsored by them, or they get free games, or maybe they just hope to not get blacklisted by Sony, because that's happened in the past when they make a negative review. And it's been going on for years. It's crap. It's really crap. And it's a horrible situation, and it needs to be resolved, because Xbox gamers can't buy JRPGs if they don't launch on the console. And when they do, they need to be marketed. Because up until last year, I know people that didn't know Final Fantasy 15 was available on Xbox. That was Square Enix's job to advertise the thing. It's ridiculous. And hopefully it gets fixed soon. It needs to be fixed. I think it's a stupid situation. Oh, anyway, we have the first super chat of the day by Nick W. Thank you very much for the $4.99. He says, Square hasn't been the same since they merged with Enix. You're right. Square Enix isn't the company we used to love. I used to love getting a Square soft game as a kid, be it on PlayStation or, Game Boy. I had a lot of Square games on Game Boy at the time as a kid. And, like, you knew you were getting a quality product by a company that knew how to make amazing games. And now you don't know what you're getting. You could be getting anything. You could be getting an NFT-filled game. Hell, they've been talking about a game where only 3 people will play the ending. Like, it's ridiculous that it's gotten to this point. And, like, I don't like calling them the new Ubisoft. Like, and I loved Ubisoft games. Most of the games on my shelf, there's a lot of Ubisoft games. But I don't want them to like fall that way. Like I want Ubisoft to get better. I want Square Enix to get better. We should want more good games. But like every single day, Square Enix posts something on Twitter, and people are asking for an Xbox version, and it does my head in because they should be able to get it. I want to know what deals are in place. Like you're saying, Logan, the FTC or whatever, looking into it to see if there's some weird like deal stopping these games coming over. There's something that needs to change. And anyway, thank you, Nick W, for the super chat. But yeah, he's right. Squaresoft was amazing. Square Enix, they haven't been amazing at all. They've had some good games, but back in the day, all their games were good, and it hasn't been the case for what 23 years or something. It's been a while. So yeah, like an entire generation of people have lived with Square Enix basically, and they haven't experienced the Squaresoft days, which is a shame, you know. Logan, have you got anything else on the topic before I move on?
No, just that it's a bummer. I mean, like, I loved their games growing up, but it's just the magic's gone right now for them. Like, maybe it's because I'm kind of frustrated and because they keep, with treating Xbox platform like it's second second class citizen platform, or like a pixel remaster collection that you could run on a DS or a 3DS, or like not that intensive hardware. It comes to everything, even Amazon Fire tablets, but is not coming to Xbox. When it is that blatant, there's something icky. It feels gross, and it feels like there's more to this story than is out there right now. Or it could just be as simple as, the money they want doesn't match what Xbox agrees with. It could be as simple as that, but I don't know. It's just the whole thing sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I want things to change, and like I put it like this: like if anyone's listening that plays games on another platform as their preferred, console, be it Nintendo or PlayStation, like do you benefit anything by, let's say, the pixel remasters not going to Xbox? Because for years people have been wanting the classic Final Fantasy games in a package on Xbox, and it like when I saw the Kindle tablet version, like I rolled my eyes. Like I was like, how dare they release these JRPGs on Kindles, Fire tablet devices, and not Xbox? Like, is there really a market that big for Fire tablet Final Fantasy games? Like, really, Square? Is that where we at now? Bloody out of all tablets, by the way. Like, and by the way, Amazon do make good tablets. This is not a knock on like the quality of those tablets. They are good, but like, really, you're putting these games on a Fire tablet? Like, they're useless. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, that's the company that sold off their Western divisions for $300 million plus IP. Thankfully, they sold off the studios and IP because they're in a better place now with a better publisher. But things need to change. Hopefully, they will do soon. But people need to keep requesting these games to come to Xbox. And by the way, while I was ranting about Square Enix making dumb decisions, the first Kingdom Hearts game to come to Xbox was Kingdom Hearts 3, in a series that's notoriously complicated. Like, the story in those games are crazy and don't really make a lot of sense. But like the first one we get is 3, and then they release the remasters 2 years later. Come on. Like, no franchise is going to sell well if you market them badly and release them in the wrong order. It's ridiculous. Anyway, we'll move on. Before we go on to the next topic, Ghostwire Tokyo goes live on Xbox in about 4 minutes. So, after you finish listening to this show, download the game. It's in Game Pass, all that stuff. But yeah. You know what? We'll talk about RedFall now. I want to talk about perception versus reality, and we can talk about the details of the game. So Redfall, so Redfall gets announced at when was it? Was it last E3? Yeah, it was last E3. It was going to come out in the summer, and it got delayed and all that stuff. And
yeah, it was codenamed Omen.
Yeah, and people wondering like, what is this game? Because we had some leaked screenshots, and even though I still can't post them, they were early development screenshots, and people were saying, looks like Borderlands. And then months go by, we get gameplay. And honestly, I think the gameplay looked great, but that was by a studio that put together that footage. And the description for that game has been available for over a year now. And basically, the game is an open world Far Cry style game with vampires that you hunt. And you can play as various different characters. Now, to me, I was thinking, okay, that's what it is. But there's been this perception of Redfall since it came out, which it does my head in, right? I'm going to have a bit of a rant. Gamers do this thing where they will see a game and make a snap judgment right then and there on what the game is, what genre it is, what they do in the game, just off seeing one trailer or an image. Let's go back a bit. So Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy gets announced at E3 2021, and people were wondering, I don't want to play this because isn't this an Avengers style game? Even though it was said to be a single player game, even though in the trailer they said it was a single player game, and even all the press releases said it was a single player game with no microtransactions, single player. Every single time I posted about Guardians of the Galaxy, people were saying, I don't want to play this because of Avengers. Right? So perception set in, they saw the game, they made a snap judgment call, and no matter how many times they were told about this game, they were concerned because of Avengers. Now, that used to annoy me. Let's go and look at Aliens Fireteam Elite, right? Every time I posted about that game, people were replying to my post saying, Jamie, I'm concerned because of Alien Colonial Marines. They were concerned because of a different game made in a different decade by a different developer under a different publisher in a different engine. People were concerned, right? It's so annoying. Every single game now, people make a snap judgment call on what it is based on basically nothing. So Redfall, Logan, you know where I'm going with this. Redfall gets announced, and people start saying, I don't want to play this game. It's a Left 4 Dead style game. And after watching the trailers and reading the press releases, I have bloody no idea what the hell they're talking about. Like, Left 4 Dead is not open world. It's not class-based. And, and people have told me that they want to play Redfall because it's going to be their new Destiny. Right? It's going to be a Destiny-style game. And, I go over the trailers, I read the press release, and I'm like, why do people keep doing this? This snap judgment thing that had happened with Guardians of the Galaxy, Aliens Fireteam Elite, people are making, like, I remember when Halo Infinite was shown, people were replying to my post saying, I'm concerned because of Destiny. Different genre. Like, Logan, like, you must have noticed this as well, right? Like, people are making these snap judgment calls and not even bothering to read the press release. And if they do read it, they still concern troll.
Yeah, like, I got a few thoughts about that. One, I think it's kind of just, I know this makes us sound old again, but it feels like kind of just a byproduct of the TikTok era, where it's like, you gotta have a few second or less reaction, or just first impression, just boom, get it out there. Like, hardly even process or analyze it. Just like, I see it, first thought that pops in my head, boom, that's it, that's my snap judgment. Not going back on it, not changing it, whatever. And then I think part of it is frankly, a lot of people probably won't admit it, but I think a lot of the hate for it is simply because Arcane is part of Bethesda, and Bethesda was acquired by Xbox. There, I said it. I think it's a lot of the hate is because of that. Because Bethesda was universally praised for the acquisition. All their games, people were so hyped for Starfield, Redfall, like whatever games that were going to come out from them. Bethesda was an S tier, product, guaranteed, amazing. Yes, Fallout 76 was not where it needed to be at launch and was a disaster. Which, frankly, is actually a lot of fun now, and it's got a really good community, positive community as well. But at launch, yes, that was a disaster. They've been acquired, they've fixed it, they're doing really good work on other stuff. I just think, frankly, the fact that it was acquired still rubs them the wrong way. And so anything they announce going forward gets combed over with a razor sharp comb. Like, not even just a fine tuned comb. It's like they're just digging to try to just entrench and irritate and just find problems with anything. And the fact that, like, I'll admit, the first time I saw it, I was like, huh, I get some Left for Dead or kind of Borderlands vibes. But then, they a few months come out, they have updates, and they go, oh, you can play solo or with friends, and there's these abilities. And if you want a more horror traditional experience, you can get that. Or if you want to run in there guns blazing with abilities, you can do that too. Like, however you want to play. And it's going to be bigger than Prey's, immersive environment, which is huge. And it's going to have all this stuff to where, frankly, if you're still saying it looks like a Left 4 Dead game, or it looks terrible, or it's a Destiny game, or it's, Bug Thesda, or this, either you're delusional or you just haven't read up to date information because it's been out there for a while now that this game is clearly not what some are pushing. And it doesn't help, frankly, when you give it to people to put out there and run gameplay of it, and it doesn't come off the way it should. That does not help the perception. I know it's the biggest outlet, but that really did not help.
Yeah, and so basically, about 3 weeks ago, there was a Redfall event that they invited a bunch of different like streamers and content creators and stuff, and got to play the game. And all the previews, by the way, for that game was positive. The gameplay that was out, people liked. All the interviews, everything about Redfall, people loved it. It had positive previews. Skip forward to about 3 days ago. IGN. Look, we have to say the name. IGN First, or whatever they call it, where they have a month of focusing on that game. Granted, it is good to market a game like that because they are the biggest gaming outlet, I think. Like, I have to admit, every single time they put out gameplay, it's bad. I remember watching the Sonic Frontiers gameplay because they had the exclusive gameplay reveal of Sonic Frontiers, and I was appalled. I was like, what is this game? This game looks terrible. And then other companies start putting out gameplay, and it's like, oh, wait, this game looks good. And everyone's told me Sonic Frontiers is genuinely fun. And it's been a thing for years now where IGN, for some reason, they tend to put out bad gameplay every so often. So it's like, okay, but bear in mind, 3 weeks ago, people were complaining. There were some people that were almost crying. That blows my mind. So, like, just because of IGN doing one lot of gameplay, it being bad, people changed their mind. It went from a game that they were port begging, and, I remember seeing people atting the CMA and FTC on Twitter saying, this game got cancelled because of an exclusivity deal and then buying a studio. But yet 3 weeks later, they're calling the game trash. So which one is it? Do you want the game? Or do you not want the game? And now it's trash. But again, people can't make up their minds. And even the past week, I've had to deal with the whole Left 4 Dead thing, by the way. Like, gameplay has been out for months now. And the previews were positive for that game. Like, it doesn't take any effort to go onto a search engine and search, like, positive gameplay, positive vibes. Everyone likes Redfall. And, Colt Eastwood put out some gameplay on Twitter the other day. Looks great. And id from id Software, they've been working on the FPS gameplay. It clearly shows. But, people will make up their own mind when it comes out next month. It's just strange because, like, people are just making these snap judgment calls, and it's going to continue, honestly. Hopefully things will change, but I don't know. Logan, have you got anything else to say on the topic before I move on?
No, just that it's just disappointing to see that I know everyone's guilty to it of a certain extent. Like, sometimes a first impression lasts a long time for a game and stuff, but when there's been months of new information and then new content, and stuff like that to still be latching on to things that have been disproven at this point, and then to hold a, to flip a 180 and go from I love this company and their games to automatically this company makes crap and it's awful and how could anybody want this? I'm going to make my entire online personality hating and trashing and trying to harass folks who are looking forward to this. It's just dumb at this point. At the end of the day.
Yeah, it's just getting a bit silly. And plus, people can subscribe to Game Pass and play it. It releases on the 2nd of May, so it's pretty close now. But yeah, anyway, we'll move on. We're about now in the show. If people are enjoying it, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications, all that stuff. Super chats are live if you want to support and all that. Anyway, so Joseph Staten leaves Microsoft. Now, when this announcement was made, let's face it, everyone acted like it was the end of the world. The dude's worked at Microsoft for over 20 years. And I kind of saw this coming. Halo's been in a weird place for a while, but notice now Halo talk has been really positive. Like, they've gotten the act together, content's there, the creative content's there as well. People like Halo Infinite. Like, I see a lot of positive talk around Halo Infinite. It doesn't help that I don't play much multiplayer in general now. So, I'm a bit out of the scene. But, Logan, would you say right now, after the past few updates, that Halo Infinite is in a way better place?
Yeah, Halo Infinite is in a much better place than it was when it launched. And frankly, it launched in a gameplay wise a good state. It was just severely and comically lacking content. But at this point, it's the best it's been. It's doing really, really good. And the whole Joseph Staten thing kind of ties to a thing I've been noticing with Xbox more than anybody else. Maybe it's the way it's covered by fans and media or whatever, but it just seems like when someone leaves Xbox, it gets covered one way and treated one way, and then when somebody leaves another place, it's treated another way. Or maybe it's just that we hear more about the Xbox departures because they choose to focus on them. Because I don't hear in the news all the time about if somebody decides to leave Naughty Dog or retire, or somebody, leaves Sony Santa Monica, or a great studio and just leaves, or goes to another job, or retires, or whatever. It doesn't seem to get the same energy. And I wish him well. He's done awesome work for Halo and Xbox and everything. Whatever he's going to do next, I'm sure is going to be great. Look forward to seeing it. Or maybe he's retiring. And, man, enjoy that sunset. It's you've had a great career, but it's just, I don't know, the vibes are just really weird about that.
Yeah, because you mentioned how people stepping down from other companies and never gets mentioned as much, because Sean Layden, the head of PlayStation, remember when he left? Nobody batted an eye. No, there weren't 1,000 articles about it. The head of PlayStation left. They put Shuhei Yoshida in a different position, was barely covered. And it goes into other topics as well, because remember when Red Dead Redemption 2 was about to come out? It was arguably one of the most anticipated games of all time. And I think it was Bloomberg were putting out articles almost daily talking about crunch and how crunch culture is destroying gaming. Yet about a year later, they wouldn't cover Naughty Dog with The Last of Us.
Infamous, yeah.
Yeah, and that was all over the place, but yet they weren't covering that. And again, back with Joe Staten, it's a big thing him leaving. He came back. Halo fans were celebrating because they clearly needed some help, and now it's in a good place. And plus, he's been working in games for 20 plus years. Maybe just wants time off or whatever. We have seen people leave Microsoft and come back. I've seen people in the past week leave Activision because of weird reasons, and then they've recently announced that they're coming back. So I think people need to maybe not look at it as the end of the world every single time someone leaves Microsoft, because it can be a nothing burger basically. I think that the telling thing will be for Halo is if things will change. Like, will the past few months of good content change because he's left and all that stuff? Like, what's the roadmap like now? Now that Joe's left, I just think they need to be more open with fans. We've talked about this in the past. I think Microsoft's strong suit in the past few years is that they've been upfront for a lot of different games. I think when it comes to Halo Infinite and Halo in general, they need to be upfront with the community, because when it comes to most gaming communities, it could be really positive, but the Halo fan base, no matter what it is, can be really split down the middle. They just need some positivity, and I always see transparency as a positive. It doesn't matter if it's bad news or good news. Transparent companies get a plus in my book. And, like you're saying, the past few months have been good for content when it comes to Halo Infinite. I wouldn't really look too much into this unless there's signs that start to show up over the next several months. Other than that, I don't think it's worth to really, be concerned about. And plus, from what I've played of Halo Infinite, the gameplay is bloody incredible. Like, I loved that gameplay. Like, who would have thought Halo and a grappling hook would work? But it does. And, yeah, I maybe have to give multiplayer another chance at some point. But, yeah, Halo Infinite, I wouldn't read too much into it. But, again, it's someone leaving Microsoft. It is what it is. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay. Microsoft, actually, yeah, this is going to be a long-ass topic. So, the Activision Blizzard thing's been going on for a long time now, and people are getting sick of it, but all these juicy things start coming out of the woodwork, and I have to read this headline because I know you'll have seen it as well, Logan. I know people that listen to this right now may have seen it, because my jaw hit the floor when I actually saw this. Here we go. Sony tells regulators that Microsoft could sabotage its ability to win Digital Foundry comparisons. Now, after I picked my jaw up off the floor, I was like, what the hell does that even mean? So do they de facto expect to somehow win, quote-unquote win, Digital Foundry comparisons? Because as we've seen in the past, Microsoft and Sony, they look at different metrics in different ways. Even though Microsoft for the past few years, they'd be like, hey, this console's the most powerful. It's the most powerful Xbox, most powerful console, all that stuff. But like Sony, they are really focused on things like, review scores, Metacritic, Days Gone sold incredibly well, but it's not going to get a sequel because of Metacritic, which blows my mind. But I never see Microsoft talk about Metacritic that much, even when a game scores well. And then you have this, so they de facto expect to win these comparisons just because. That blew my bloody mind. Logan, what do you think of that? Because it is a bit weird that the maker of let's say, the weaker console, because it's a slightly weaker console, they expect to win Digital Foundry comparisons just because.
Yeah, this this opens up a whole, Pandora's box of stuff for Sony, but essentially they were fear-mongering about the idea that Xbox could make a worser version of Call of Duty just for them, or that, they could put bugs in the final mission, or they could withhold content, or, have a parody version where it's clearly not the same, or they cite Digital Foundry. They went the giant bomb and used a thread from 10 years ago. You are scraping the bottom of a scum barrel at that point. A fan forum from 10 years ago. Find content to prop up your lousy argument. That is ridiculous. And the fact that they're so worried about, parody and visuals and content, being equivalent, I'm like, what's really funny? You just had an ad run the other day talking about how you have all this exclusive features for the PlayStation version of Call of Duty that you can't get anywhere else because of your deals, where you get, mission packs early, or, certain guns or skins, or, certain features, yada, 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 that you can get through your deals, but you are terrified that someone else would do unto you what you did unto them. And that even though Microsoft has point blank been, we are not doing that. We hate that practice. We're not about that life. We're not doing that. Take it to the bank. If you don't trust our word, we'll have legal bound documents and we'll pay for a third party to watch, loom over our shoulder and watch us and make sure we're doing what we said we will do. We will take care of everything. And they're still throwing these archaic, arguments that are ridiculous, hold no water, and just expose how petty and childish and ridiculous and how they're, putting their own kind of vibes out there that, this is stuff that they've pulled. So it's hilarious that they're terrified someone might do that to them and they're crying foul about it when it's not them doing it. It's just been gloriously comedic and really funny. Big egg on their face. And, it also plays to Sony. Give them credit. They know their player base, and they know them better than maybe even Xbox knows their own player base. Like, they play into the console war stuff like crazy. You remember the death punch in 2013 that this is how you share games,
yeah.
or this citing Digital Foundry videos of this one has slightly better resolution or frame rates or this or that, and then fan forum rage posts and just all kinds of garbage. Like, really? Is this at the point where we're at where we've spent millions of dollars and countless hours flying around the globe, crying to people, making phone calls, getting governments involved, and now we're at this point where we're having to cite some random dude on a fan forum from a decade ago? Is that where we're at this point? Really?
Yeah, I mean, it is getting a bit pathetic, let's face it. Like the fact that, and people may not know this, like, Sony has been cited. So basically, when the whole Activision thing kicked off last year, when it was announced, there was a group of gamers. I wouldn't be surprised if they're just a bunch of people from Reset Era, let's be honest, banded together and went to sue Microsoft over the deal. And basically, we've just found out that Sony's been supplying these gamers, like their court case, with official documents. Like, wow. Like, I've known Sony's made some, like, very choice moves in the past and said some choice things, about backwards compatibility, the player base, gamers will work 2 jobs to buy a PlayStation 3. But that's probably one of the worst things they've done, And the thing is, they've been the darlings of the gaming industry for a long time now, and I've never really understood why. Like, I was a PlayStation fan as a kid. Through and through. I had a PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PSP. Like, I was a PlayStation dude, right? And, like, even at the time, like, people, like, Sony were buying these studios left and right, and they were paying for exclusivity deals. But people just, like, look at them like they are the gods of gaming. That nothing can be wrong, and everything's, like, I'll put it like this. Microsoft wanted to do DRM in 2013. And even though the console we got didn't have the features they said that they were going to have, people to this day still bring up DRM. Yet Sony lost everyone's credit card details in 2011, and they weren't told about it for 2 weeks. A lot of gamers lost money, lost hundreds. I know someone that lost £600 due to that hack, right? And people forgot it within months because they got 2 crap games off PSN. They were bought and paid for 2 crap games. And people forgot about it. Yet the DRM thing, people remembered for years and years. And it's like, but like getting your credit card details stolen was like okay to forget. Like, blows my mind. Like, they this industry darling. Like, I put it like this: Jeff Keighley. We all know he's a PlayStation fan, and the best way to check this out is go to when the Xbox Series X was announced. Like, brand new console announced at the Game Awards. When the camera went to him afterwards, he was like, "Okay, cool. Next up, we're gonna have some. We're gonna have churches playing on stage." But like 10 minutes later, there was the Godfall trailer with a PlayStation 5 logo at the end. It wasn't even the official PlayStation 5 logo, it just said PlayStation 5. And he was giddy, he was happy, it was Christmas, he got visited by the Easter Bunny, he won $1 billion, smile on his face. Over the words PlayStation 5. But a new console didn't, strike any smiles or any excitement. No. It just the word PlayStation 5 on Godfall, by the way, a game that was only possible on next generation consoles, and then it got announced for last generation consoles later on. Like, there's this weird bias all over the place, and if you ever point it out to anyone, you get basically told that you're a fanboy when it's blatantly obvious to everyone. Like, it's super obvious, and the whole Digital Foundry thing, like you were saying. Sony does know their fan base. They weaponize their fan base. Like, they really do. And the Digital Foundry thing just rubbed me the wrong way because, like, isn't that meant to be, like, fair? Like, isn't that meant to be them testing the games to see what works best on, what has the best performance, best visuals, but, like, they just de facto expect to win on a console that is, yes, it's weaker. The PlayStation 5 is a powerful console, but it's technically weaker than an Xbox Series X. Like, my jaw was on the floor at the time, and they just get away with all these things. Like, nobody's talking about it. Logan, have you seen any articles outside of The Verge reporting it about the Digital Foundry thing?
Not too many, no. It for some reason just swept aside, and it's interesting as Xbox, maybe knowing how much Sony just absolutely adores Digital Foundry, apparently. Cited them as a potential third party they could use as, someone to observe and make sure that they hit the parity right and everything. And so it's just interesting how that has become such a focal point instead of just like the quality of games, this is a third party, third person experience. This is a first person experience. This is a racer. This is a shooter. Instead of just comparing genres or types of games or experiences, like, it's now gotten to the point where we're like, nth degree examining under a digital microscope the performance of games. And if one is slightly frame rated different than the other one, then we're going to raise a fuss about it and say it's a degraded experience and that it could change or threaten the entire gaming industry. It's a load of nonsense.
Yeah, and like the fact that like Jim Ryan said that if the PlayStation version was to be downgraded in any way, that it would irreparably damage PlayStation. Really? Really, dude? Like, people have been playing Call of Duty on PlayStation and Xbox for years. It's been better on one console than the other. Microsoft had the Call of Duty deal from 2005 to 2014, right? They had every single Call of Duty deal for every year and that, and Sony were fine, right? Microsoft was getting 3 months. Was it 3 months exclusivity or 1 month for maps? I can't remember.
I think it was 3 months for map packs. Like, I remember the Predator and like some of the characters and stuff like that would come a few months ahead on Xbox during 360.
Like, that was a while, and I remember there were articles all the time, like Microsoft hoarding maps for 3 months and all this stuff. And ever since Sony had the deal, they have content locked for a year. And they get away with it. Like, I remember Polygon writing articles all the time. Like, Microsoft gets greedy and like exclusivity for maps for 3 months. Yeah, entire modes are locked off from Xbox for a year for Call of Duty, and that's fine. But no. Sony would be irreparably damaged if maybe they were low resolution. Like, shouldn't Microsoft be allowed to have or shall I say, shouldn't the Call of Duty developers be able to squeeze out as much power out of each console as they can? So, like, on Xbox, it has a stronger GPU and a stronger CPU. Why can't they take advantage of that? And yet they can still use the extra rumble on a PlayStation controller. They can do that, but they can't do the other thing. It's weird, and everyone just looks past it. And like, if people say I'm wearing a tinfoil hat or whatever, I don't care. But like, the fact that nobody's talking about it says it all. Nobody's talking about it other than content creators. Like, you don't see IGN or GameSpot reporting on this all the time. They're not, and it's kind of weird. It's just being covered up. Which was the reason.
Bizarre.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Like, people should be talking about it, but no, nobody's talking about it. They get a pass, and like, and whenever I talk like this about Sony, people assume I hate them. Like, no. I was a PlayStation fan as a kid. People change preferences. Like, it just is what it is. I used to be a Nintendo fan and a Sega fan when they were doing consoles. It is what it is. And when I just saw that, it's just shady as hell. Shady as hell. And the fact that nobody's talking about it, like, I know there's a large fear that people don't want to get blacklisted by Sony because they won't. Like we've seen in the past, I think it was GameSpot, give The Last of Us in 2013 a lower score than everyone else, and Sony had a major problem with them. But it's been going on for years, and people just give them a pass, and it's amazing. Anyway, we'll move on. Microsoft, speaking of these deals, signed a 10-year deal with another company, and that's EE. Logan, I don't know what's going on in the background, but it sounds like there's a microwave on.
Oh, sorry. I was adjusting in a chair and it creaked a little bit. Sorry.
All right. So Microsoft signed a 10-year deal with EE. Now, EE is the UK's #1 mobile phone network. I mean, it is what it is. I used to be with them up until 2019. Long story, but they are a good company. And I'm surprised they actually made this deal because I thought they just did mobile phone, network stuff and internet. But hey, apparently not. They do more as well. But yeah, they're doing a 10-year cloud deal with EE. They are arguably the biggest one they've signed a deal with, even though most people listening to this podcast have probably never heard of EE. Long story short, mobile companies merged. They became the top dog. It is what it is. And yeah, big company. I mean, Kevin Bacon's in all of their adverts for whatever reason. But yeah, 10-year deal. So I think now there's been 7 or 8 10-year deals, which, I mean, hey, there's certain companies only available in certain countries, so more people can play these games, albeit by streaming. But hey, more games in more places. When it comes to this whole, Logan, have you got anything else to say on the Activision Blizzard thing?
Oh, yeah, just a few things. Like, first on the 10-year deals thing, like, this was a really smart one because it looks like they're honing in on wrapping up with the CMA, basically. Like, the EU, it seems like they're pretty good with them. At least from the outside, it seems that way. And then the CMA seems like they've kind of shifted to where they're more good with Xbox than they were. And this kind of just feels like some wrapping up touches on a masterpiece. Like, they're like, okay, we're going to sign a deal with one of the major preeminent UK distributors. And they're a mobile-focused company, but they would like to get into gaming. This way we can show, boom, we're reaching a whole bunch of people that wouldn't traditionally get this in your specific market to show the cost, the benefits of this deal. If it's approved, all these other people are going to have access to it, and like their phone company and other stuff, but now they're trying to get into the PC gaming space and cloud, so really smart on that end. Then as far as, the irreparably damaged comment, it just, to me, like, shouldn't that concern you as a company or an investor or someone who closely follows that company if your entire existence or, empire of tech is so dependent on a third-party game that you do not control, that if it were, like, you would still have access to it, but it would be slightly worse, that it would completely destroy your company? Like, I mean, there's putting all your eggs in one basket, and then there's that. Like, I don't know what on earth that comment was. Like, that was At this point, it's like almost like they're just like throw out everything and just hope something sticks. It's comical at this point, and can't wait for this thing to wrap up, and hopefully really soon. Sounds like the 26th is when the CMAs is due. So we should hear from at least the UK very soon about one way or another how this is gonna go.
Yeah, I mean, so hopefully it'll all be done by the summer showcase. Like that is in early June. There's a possibility it could be, in its final stages. But I think the deal's in place. PlayStation's going to get Call of Duty for at least 10 years. It's coming back to Nintendo, which it's been a long time, a decade at least. For Nintendo, and it's going to be all these different streaming apps. Like the fact that it's going to be an EE, like the mobile phone network in the UK. Like for people that don't live in the UK, they are huge. There's advertisements everywhere, literally everywhere. Um, but yeah, it looks like things are moving forward. And think this time next year, we will not be talking about this at all. Hopefully. I'll not speak too soon, but maybe by the summer showcase, things will be wrapping up. And speaking of the summer showcase, the Times kind of came out about that. So it's going to be a dual showcase in the summer, and it's going to be Xbox and then the Starfield thing, and it's going to be 2 hours long. Now 2 hours of gaming stuff, I'm so down for. It'll probably be 90 minutes for the Microsoft showcase and then half an hour for Starfield because Starfield's big. They need to cover a lot when it comes to this game. I think it's exciting because, like, when it comes to Starfield, like, Starfield's going to be Bethesda's biggest game to date. Like, people think, like, Skyrim's big. Like, this is bigger. Bigger scope, bigger everything. And plus, people have been wanting a new next-gen, single-player RPG like this. It looks like it's going to be a 2 hour show, lots of games. Again, like I said earlier in the show, we don't know most of the releases that's coming out late this year. Like outside of Starfield and Spider-Man for PlayStation, there's no release dates for anything. And there's a lot of games that still need to be announced. Like, Logan, what's your thought on the whole 2 hour showcase thing? Because it should be pretty good.
Yeah, 2 hours sounds awesome to me. It sounds just about right. You got an hour and a half focused on all the other games, which should cover quite a bit. Maybe some surprise announcements in there. The annual new controller or custom console being dropped in there, or Game Pass deals, and some surprise third party stuff. What's the latest on first party, and then a 30-minute solely focused on Starfield Direct. It sounds like the perfect mix. Have them at the same day, back to back, is the right way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot to go over because, like, even though Starfield's one thing, Diablo's going to be there probably because Diablo releases later that month, so they still need to show more of that game. Like, Xboxes, they've been going really hard with the Diablo thing. Like, Diablo doesn't release for months, and there's adverts on YouTube constantly in the UK, like, all the time. And it's almost as if they're advertising it as an exclusive, and every time Sarah Bond or Phil Spencer talk about Diablo, they're like, yeah, they almost talk about it like it's a first party game. I mean, it probably is going to be one soon, but hey, I mean, more games for people, It should be a good showcase. I can't wait for it. And, that's early June, so not that far away. I do hope maybe we see a developer direct by then. Maybe for Redfall, because, that does come around the corner. Again, almost a month away. Anyway, we'll move on. This is going to be a big topic because for what it is. So, Logan, there's been rumors of a PlayStation 5 Pro for the past few weeks. Tom Henderson on Twitter pretty much confirmed that it's happening next year. Again, it's a rumor, but Tom Henderson in the past has been fairly spot on. Now, in the Xbox space, I have not seen a single rumor, leaked email, or anything when it comes to an Xbox Series X Pro. I don't know what the hell they call it. An XX? I don't know. Do you think this is actually happening?
Um, Sony, yeah. For Xbox, I don't know yet, but Tom Henderson has a really good track record. Um, Generally, whenever he posts something, it's spot on. So, everybody gets things wrong occasionally, but if he's putting it out there and putting his name on it and having articles about it, then I'd say there's very good likelihood it's accurate. To me, it's a matter of whether it really makes sense to have one right now, because we finally just now gotten the gen rolling. Like, we were basically just playing last gen games for the first 2 years, or like not really too many truly exclusive next gen only games. And so now that everything's finally rolling, it just seems weird to throw out yet another version of a console, especially when supplies are so limited as it is right now. It just seems like bad timing to me, but Sony makes all kinds of different versions of consoles. I remember, the PS3 brick that was like, 50 pounds, and then they finally had a smaller one, and then like the PS2 had a bunch of different versions, and the PS4, and then the PS4 Pro, and all the different versions of those. So it seems to be the way they operate. So yeah, I'd say we'd probably see one.
Because behind the scenes, like Microsoft and Sony, they both know what each other's doing. They might not know exact specific things when it comes to specs, but they know. It's like the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4 was originally going to have 4 gigabytes of RAM, and then they found out that Microsoft was going to have 8. So they slapped 8 in, and they put in faster RAM as well. And in the end, it worked out well for them. But if Microsoft knows that Sony's working on it, I have to bring this up because it's a bit of a weird topic. Like, gamers seem kind of split on it. So, in 2016, 4K TVs were getting, more out there in the wild because 4K content was a thing. 4K Blu-rays start selling, and, streaming services start doing 4K. So there was a market for 4K, even though the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 couldn't do it. Then Microsoft put out the Xbox One S, which did basically everything your gaming console did then, but 4K media. So there was clearly a market for 4K media. And then that same year, Sony put out the PlayStation 4 Pro. It was a more powerful console. It could do 4K, in air quotes, mainly checkerboard, but still 4K. And then a year later, Microsoft put out a more powerful console that could do full 4K. We had multiple modes on games. I think even Ori had like a 120 FPS mode or something like that. But basically, they put out a 4K console in a time where 4K TVs, the adoption was way more than HD, at least in the UK. And it made sense, right? Microsoft and Sony putting out those consoles at the right time for 4K content. So where am I going with this? That same thing isn't happening right now. There's no 8K adoption for content. Like, the only way you can watch 8K at the minute, I think, is YouTube. That's it. And there's not much content for it. Most television in the UK is still broadcast in standard definition. There's no want for 8K. 8K TVs still cost an arm and a leg and 2 blood diamonds. So I don't see any want or need for an 8K device, even though these consoles are rated for 8K. So where am I going? I don't think it has to happen. I don't think it needs to happen. Because we've waited years for games to come out. Multiple games got delayed. And the games that got delayed for years that did come out, like Gotham Knights, for instance, didn't release with a 60 FPS mode. Like, we need better optimization. Throwing more hardware at a problem isn't going to solve anything. We're just going to give developers more consoles they have to make ports for. Because think about this. Let's say Xbox and PlayStation put out next-gen versions. If there is no legitimate reason, right, a proper reason for these consoles to exist, these developers are going to have to make games for Xbox One, Xbox One X, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro, Xbox Series S, Xbox Series X, Xbox Series XX, right? And then there's the PC, right? And PCs had some horrible ports, like you saw with The Last of Us. Like, that they shouldn't have released that version, And I don't want developers to be swamped in more modes, because there's Xbox One and PlayStation 4 games that are still going to release in like 2025, right? It's not like the 360 generation where it's going to get cut off after a year and a half. Like, we've seen last gen games for a long time, and like, we need better optimization. Like, and as someone that makes content, I know that if you cover hardware, you get more views. It's simple as that. But we don't need new consoles. We just don't. We have. I'm going to use Unreal Engine as one example, but the tools for Unreal Engine 5 are getting better every single week. And the stuff we can see from Unreal Engine 5 is getting better and more optimized. Look at Fortnite 2 years ago, and then look at it now. It's got ray tracing, it's 4K, it's 60 FPS on console. It's I think it's 2K 60 FPS with ray tracing on Xbox Series S. It's ridiculous. It looks amazing. But now people are seeing like maybe Microsoft and Sony are going to throw more hardware at the problem. Blows my mind. Like, and I'm defending PlayStation here as well. The Xbox Series X and S and PlayStation 5 are way more powerful than people think. And developers aren't squeezing as much, visuals and performance out as they can. They're slapping on good graphics and games, putting them out at 30, right? We're seeing more 30 FPS games all of a sudden. But yeah, the games are pretty. They're just not optimized. Like, Logan, like, it is going to be a problem if we see mid-gen refreshes that aren't justified.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's just another complication, another SKU you have to adjust for. You already have these people in the shadows, complaining about Series S or, having to do other, SKUs for things. Like adding a whole nother one that's supposedly a little bit better than the one you have now. It doesn't seem like the time or place for it right now. Like in a few years, sure, but right now it seems too early to me.
Like, there is one scenario where I think that if these consoles had this one feature, I think it would justify them, right? I think this one specific feature that I'm about to say, that if these consoles, these mid-gen refreshes of the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, if they have this one feature, they will sell. And that is AI upscaling. But I don't think home consoles are going to do that, right? So like, let's say I'm going to use the Xbox 360 version of Red Dead Redemption. Let's say AI upscaling can be applied to make better graphics in that game without touching the code. Then I'd say those consoles would be justified. But I can't see these consoles with that tech. There's no rumor, by the way, but this is the only way that I see these consoles being viable and needed, is if AI upscaling would be applied to most games and the overhead wouldn't basically kill your console. Because, like, Forza Motorsport releasing this year, incredible game. 4K 60, ray tracing, all that stuff. There's all these amazing looking games coming out this year that are also 60 FPS, and I don't see any want for more hardware. Like, it's fun to talk about hardware, but, like, there isn't a market for, like, I've argued with people on Twitter about this. Like, granted, as a content creator, I should want this. I should want more consoles to talk about. And if Microsoft do announce a new console, I'm going to talk about it because that's the point of the channel. But, like, there isn't a reason for it. Look at people with 4090s and 4080s, super powerful graphics card, but not all these developers are taking advantage of it. These games aren't optimized. There's developers still not squeezing like the juice out of a 2080, but the games are coming out unoptimized. PC versions of games are completely broken, unfortunately, and people just want to slap new consoles at the problem. It's not needed. It's really not needed. And I think it's true. I think these consoles are going to come out. I don't want it to happen. But, like, again, Tom Henderson, 9 times out of 10, he's been right. If Microsoft knows that Sony's making mid-gen refreshes, they're going to make one as well. And if these consoles don't have AI upscaling, they shouldn't exist. And I don't think those consoles will be... I put it like this. The PlayStation 5 in the UK costs about £500 to £530. So if you're going to slap out a brand new mid-gen refresh, what's its justification? It's going to be more 4K. It's going to be 60 FPS. More 60 FPS? Like, I don't understand the point. They have Zen ZPUs in them. They're not needed. And I've been writing about this because I don't see the point. I just don't. Again, outside of AI upscaling, which I don't like... I put it like this: if these consoles do exist and they have AI upscaling for games as you play in them in real time, these consoles would cost like £800, like $800. People aren't going to pay that much. We saw with the VR thing for PlayStation, like a £500 VR headset that requires a console, didn't sell that great. The £500 consoles are selling okay, but like in a time when everything's going up in price, like it's just not happening. Like it's stupid, and I can't believe that after 2 years, going on 3 this year, that like the chip shortage has affected every company on Earth. Games have barely came out. Games that have come out aren't even scratching the surface of what the hardware is capable of. We're not getting optimized games, and it's stupid. We don't need them. Like I'd be interested outside of the AI upscaling thing, which I just mentioned, which I don't think they'll have. What is it you want from a mid-gen refresh? Like, let me know in the comments or on Twitter. Like, what justifies it? I don't understand. Like, and these pieces of hardware will sell because you have the people that are dedicated to the platforms that will buy them anywhere. But like, God of War on PlayStation looks incredible, and it's a cross-gen game. You have Forza coming out this year, racing game, looks incredible. There's no problem that needs fixing. Developers need better tools. That's it. Give them better tools. Give them better dev kits. But for the love of God, stop throwing hardware at it. Like, at 2016 and 2017, there was a reason. Now there isn't a reason. And it just annoys me. Because, honestly, I don't want to spend £500 on a new console next year. I have to mention this. Warpig just said more internal memory. Yeah, storage is a bit of a problem. Like, if these
that's a good point.
Yeah, like if these console makers come out and say, "Hey, right, we're gonna put out new hardware. It's basically slim consoles with more storage," I'd be like, "Great, go for it!" Right? We had slims during the Xbox 360 generation. There was 2 different slims for Xbox and PlayStation. The Wii even had a few variants. They even had a variant that didn't have an Ethernet port, so you essentially had a Wii that couldn't go online. But like the slims make sense. Give them more memory. Like, I would love a new Xbox with like 3 terabytes of internal storage. I would love that. But like when I've got Flight Simulator downloading, it's like over 100 gigabytes. I'm like, really? Star Wars Jedi Survivor comes out and it's 155 gigabytes on PC. How much of Coruscant do I need? Apparently all of it. But yeah, like outside of storage and maybe like a slim, I don't see the point. And the scary thing is, these consoles are rumored to come out next year, halfway through the generation, 2024. I still don't see the point of mid-gen refreshes. Like, outside of AI upscaling, like I've been ranting about this for about 10 hours now, Logan. But like, do you see any justification for a mid-gen refresh, even though these consoles are clearly not being tapped into?
Well, to me, like, if you're making new hardware, you have to have, very good reason why to put it out there. Like, either it's like a custom console, or there's like a huge generational leap in graphics or performance, or there's new abilities of tech that there wasn't before, or like there's new accessories that you can only use for this. Like, for example, we've talked about VR on here a few times, but like, if they made a next, like a mid-gen console that was VR capable, or like had massive storage upgrades, like could actually store, more than 10 games on it, and didn't cost, $1,000, that would be awesome. Or if they made slimmer versions, or, like something that like you said, AI scaling, or maybe if, like, this is probably far-fetched, but what if Xbox made like a hybrid console that was almost like a Switch type thing, to where you could dock it and take it on the go, something like that. Like, if PlayStation or Xbox made a mid-gen refresh that was something like that, totally get why you would sell that and put that out there. But just a slightly different version of the console with largely the same hardware and software, just maybe a different name and different coat of paint. It's just, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, I mean, like my only complaint now when it comes to the hardware is the storage cards are way overpriced, and everyone knows that. Like SSDs are pricey anyway, but when you have a proprietary card, they can be pricey. Like I remember the PlayStation Vita had proprietary memory cards, like pricey. They just need to get smaller memory card prices and better tools. PlayStation needs better tools. I outside of AI upscaling, I can't see these consoles justifying themselves. Like remember the PlayStation 4 could do VR, but the PlayStation 4 Pro had VR. Like it could just do more VR. You know, it had prettier games, higher resolution, all that stuff. But I don't see a market for it. And you know, the reason why this has really gotten to me is that during the Xbox 360 generation, we hit a worldwide recession, right? The markets tanked worldwide. It was a crappy time. So to extend the life of the consoles, Microsoft put out a Kinect, a motion-based control system, and even though it was an amazing piece of tech, the games weren't there. Sony had the oh my god, what was the PlayStation Move? That was a PlayStation Move, and that didn't have good games either. Cool tech, not good games. And they extended the generation because of the recession. Like, I honestly believe this. The Xbox One and PlayStation 4 hardware we got in 2013, I honestly believe those are the consoles we should have got in 2010. The generation was way too long. The consoles we got in 2013 were not, they were underpowered. Like, the Xbox One was basically over-engineered. It was the size of a VCR. I mean, hell, if you open up an original Xbox One, there's so much empty space inside because they were worried about the Red Ring of Death thing again. Thankfully, that system stayed cool because it was the size of a planet. But like, it's just a weird situation because like the Xbox One X and the PlayStation 4 Pro justified themselves. This time, I don't see that. Outside of AI upscaling, I don't say that. And by the way, while I'm ranting, ray tracing. Going into this generation, I was excited about ray tracing. Ray tracing makes things look amazing. Gotham Knights ray tracing looks amazing. Other games looks amazing. But is it really worth cutting your frame rate in half? Does it look that good? Because I'll tell you what, I've chosen 60 FPS modes over ray tracing this generation. Hands down. I will take screen space reflections, which don't look as good as ray tracing, but they're still bloody good. I mean, hell, even Xbox 360 did screen space reflections in games. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm ranting. Logan, have you got anything else to say on this topic? Because I'm ranting now.
No, just that basically bottom line, I don't think it's time. I think it's too early and I don't think it will be received well by the masses to try to put that out now.
Yeah, I mean, we just want to see more games launching these consoles. Like, PlayStation and Xbox have not been tapped into to their full potential. Even the Series S, like, hasn't been tapped into. It's hardware that's unnecessary. And I think if Microsoft and Sony, if these consoles come out next year, they're going to be announced at E3 or whatever we have next year, and they're going to release in the October November range. But those pieces of hardware are going to need to justify themselves to exist because outside of the 4K thing for One X and PlayStation 4 Pro, it's not the same this time. We don't have 8K Blu-ray discs. We don't have 8K streaming on Netflix and Disney Plus. It's not the same time. But yeah, it's a weird time. I just don't see the point. Again, as a content creator, I should want more hardware, but it's just not necessary. I'll take better optimization with the console I've already got. Maybe some, bigger storage with a slimmer console. That's it. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out?
No, just excited for the inevitable update on ABK stuff. Redfall coming soon. Jedi Survivor imminent. Gonna hop off and play some Ghostwire Tokyo. It's good times in the Xbox neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good games coming out. Like Star Wars is out soon. Ghostwire is literally out now. So when people have finished listening to this and after they've liked it and shared it, hint, hint, go play Ghostwire. It's in Game Pass. It looks good. It's a first-person shooter with magic. I mean, how can you go wrong? But yeah, thanks for everyone in chat. And once again, we've had a whole show without porn bots. Congratulations. I think that's like 8 shows in a row now. Like that's a rarity on YouTube. But yeah, I'll have content out before the next show. I'll post the link to my previous video in the description down below. 10 games coming out in April. Most of the games on that list don't even release till the second half of this month. So I highly recommend people watch that. It helps. Anyway, we'll be back at the same time next week. We'll be talking about gaming and all that stuff. Again, everyone in chat's been awesome. Same time next week. We are out. Peace.